This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning, and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. And I go to Mexico with Pro Bass Adventures, left on, I think, the 8th, got back yesterday. And boy, do we have some news in the world of professional bass fishing. I think since I've gotten back, I've been on the phone for probably about 15 hours, and we are going to dive into all of it, all firsthand information, folks, not secondhand, not third hand, not stuff you've read, watched, or seen on the YouTubes, but we're going to get to the bottom of a lot of stuff. And then after we handle the Elite Angler Board of Professionals, the NPFL on Lake Murray, the Texas Sharelunker situation with Ben Milliken, and talk a little bit about Pro Bass Adventures in Mexico, we are going to dive into some of the baits, the trends, the tackle that shaped the 2024 season of professional bass fishing with Ricky Harris, who is the new marketing manager at Omnia Fishing. He's going to jump on. We're going to talk about some of the baits, some of the trends that kind of took the fishing world by storm in 2024. So we'll start things off in the first segment. And I do want to say I am recording a show with one of the anglers on the newly formed Angler Board of Professionals, none other than Mark Menendez, a longtime friend of BTL and Bassmaster Elite Series angler. That show that is going to dive into this newly formed independent board of 6 anglers, all different levels of experience, rookies, sophomores, veterans, on the Elite Series, that is going to work hand in hand closely with BASS. They actually were just at Bassmasters headquarters a couple weeks ago. Mark is going to be on the show on the 23rd, which will be our last show of the 2024 season, the 20th season of BTL, to talk about this board, but had lengthy discussions with multiple members of that board over the past 24 hours, and very optimistic about this board. Press release that came out on December 12th. It said, in an effort to facilitate better communication and collaboration with Elite Series anglers, the Bassmaster Elite Angler Board of Professionals, the ABP, has been created. The advisory board consists of 6 elite anglers who are voted on by their peers and will speak on behalf of the entire field in communicating with BASS in order to provide a more direct and efficient way of discussing any current challenges and future opportunities. And if you remember this, this board basically, it just seems like over the last couple years, let's take a trip back to that 2018-2019 season, when the split with the Bass Pro Tour and Major League Fishing happened. And a lot of new faces came on the Elite Series. There were some faces that stayed. There were some faces that left. And at the time, it was really interesting to see how Bass would weather that storm. It was a storm. I mean, you had a lot of big names that left, and there was a feeling of unity, of collaboration, of working together, building each other up, of representing that BASS, the Bassmaster brand that still had the Bassmaster Classic in their back pocket. And you had new ownership with the Anderson Group, with Chase Anderson taking the helm of that, a lot of unknowns, and it was really smooth. I thought for a number of years, a lot of positivity coming out of that, a lot of anglers working together with each other. And I think it's just natural in any business, in any company, in anything, especially when you're dealing with 100 different independent contractors, that there were some cracks that began to develop in that foundation. And then I think the top of that was when earlier this year they announced the no entry fees for the Elite Series. In theory, it's a big boom, it's a big boost to do that, but the payouts were abysmal according to the majority of the Bassmaster Elite Series anglers. So what Bass did was they basically recognized this completely independent group that were voted on by their peers, by the other Elite Series anglers, led by John Cruz, Mark Menendez, who I mentioned will be on the show on December 23rd to really dive into this. We'll just kind of talk about the highlights of it now. Lee Livesey, Drew Benton, Alex Weatherall, and Ben Milliken. And one of the first things that came out of that was the revised Elite Series payout. And the Anglers board recommended and then agreed that there will be a $10,000 contribution from each angler going into this season, as opposed to, I think it was $5,000 for each tournament beforehand. So you do 9, you're $45,000 in. Now you're only $10,000 in. The revised payout goes down to $5,500 for 50th, so $5,500 if you finish 26th through 50th. A little bit reduced payout in that top 10. 10th place gets $10,000, but remember, now they're in less than $1,000 per tournament. There's 9 Elite Series tournaments throughout the year. $7,000 for 15th place, and 25th place is $6,000. The daily big bass, $1,000 a day for all 4 days. The overall big bass is $2,000, and then closest is Bass Track payout. They did top 5 in the Angler of the Year payouts: $100,000 for first, $6,250 for fifth, $10,000 for the Rookie of the Year, and $10,000 for the big bass winner. And then they also revised the Classic payout. So that was one of the big things. So technically, yeah, still fishing for their own money. Like I said, I think forget Major League Fishing did that for like a year or two. The anglers, they have a board over there and tried all that, and then it's not sustainable at this point. It's not big enough to be able to make a living with actually no entry fees. I think that you're always going to have anglers putting some of their own money into the pot. Ideal, what you would like to see, no, but it is what it is. And from the 3 anglers that are on the Elite board of professionals that I've spoken with in the past 24 hours about this, a lot of positivity towards this, a lot of working together, a lot of optimism moving forward into the 2025 season. I think you can see that on the social media, on all of that. And then also, I asked this off the record, and I'll say it on the record. I said, off the record, how's Bass and the people at Bass responded to this? And everyone has said incredibly well, incredibly optimistic. They want to work together. They want their anglers to be happy. They want them to be able to make a living. So I'm optimistic about this. I think this could be a new page, a great thing moving forward with the Angler Board of Professionals. This has been, like I said, there's a board over on the MLF side. I think like there's representatives that represent like 8 to 10 anglers on each. And if you have a concern, you go to your representative, and then he takes it to that board, to the head of the organization. We've had the PAA in the past. We have that a lot of the anglers that are involved in this were involved in back then. There's a number of different kind of iterations of this that have happened. So hopefully this will kind of quiet that storm. We'll move into the 2025 season on the Elite Series side with anglers who feel like they're being listened to, with anglers who are on board with it, who are all pulling towards the betterment of the organization, and everyone makes money and has sponsors and is happy. And that's the goal of all this thing. Moving on to the NPFL that just took place on Lake Murray. This was an interesting event, originally scheduled as the season finale in Florida, rescheduled due to severe weather. then rescheduled from the reschedule in Florida to Lake Murray. There are a number of anglers. For first, it was canceled, and then they brought back on the final stop of the year, put it on Lake Murray. I could understand it both ways. If you're in the middle of the pack, you don't have much to gain. I don't think it would be, there are many of those anglers who had an issue with it being canceled. If you're in the hunt for an angler of the year, if you're in the hunt for a win, something like that, yeah, I would want another crack at that. Bailey Gay won that event with 39 pounds, 15 ounces, which was supposed to be a 3-day event. Herein lies the issue, which was supposed to be a 3-day event. Brad Fuller, president of the NPFL, made a call on day one to postpone or to cancel day one, to make it a 2-day event. Remember, the full field fishes all 3 days there, because of severe weather that was predicted to enter the Lake Murray area. There was some pushback on that from some anglers on social media, which led to a confrontation in a restaurant, which eventually led to Brad Fuller getting arrested. And I was shocked when I heard and saw this. A lot of information out there about it. So I actually talked with Brad. There's a lot of stuff, that he couldn't talk about currently because it's a ongoing investigation. But one thing that I will give the NPFL and especially Brad credit for is an intense passion for the NPFL, what they call the league, for how deeply he cares about it, and definitely some miscommunication between anglers and those at the top of that organization. Brad agreed to come on BTL. It will most likely be in January when this is settled and he can talk about it. Like these next two things, like you have like actual charges, you have lawyers involved. It is a very interesting dynamic that you're dealing with there too, because they're also finalizing their field for the 2025 season, which is going to include some big names that haven't fished it before. With the no forward-facing sonar over there, you also have you have to have trust in these organizations. I mean, like when I fish, I have to fish the opens. Like I'm putting a lot of my own money into this, so you have to have a lot of trust in these organizations. So when Brad is ready to talk about that, I'll reach out to the other parties that are involved too, and just like we typically try to do in BTL and Bass Talk Live, we'll let everyone come on, say what they want to say, talk about their side of it. And then, like I've always said, I think we have the most educated fan base, BTL listener base in bass fishing, something that I'm proud of. You can make your own conclusions off of that. But I do respect Brad for returning my call, for reaching out, talk to him. And like I said, I'll reach out to the other anglers that are involved in that. But really right now, outside of the actual police report and second, third, fourth hand accounts of what went down there, there's not much to be said. I mean, the long and short of it in 20 seconds is there are some anglers that were not happy with the weather delay. They posted it on social media. Brad took offense to that, located where those anglers were and confronted them. And I don't think it went how either side wished it would have went. So that's what we'll talk about. And then I'm in Mexico and I get service like every night. They have Starlink. They have Starlink at Pro Bass Adventures there. If you notice, we did 2 shows, 2 live shows there that kind of talked to and showed a lot of the setup and how things go down there. Highly recommend go watching those if you have any interest ever in heading down to El Salto, which I would. I mean, we caught 87 bass over 5 pounds just out of the boat that I was in, and we had 9 bass over 8 pounds just out of my boat. I had a 9.10, a 9.8, a lot of high 8s. Juice from Juice's Jigs, he went on that trip. He had the big bass of the trip. He caught a 10-12 with about 2 hours left on the final day. He just happened to be across the cove, so we got to hear about that one. for a solid half hour. But you get back in one night, and then you get the headline, Ben Milliken charged in tournament fraud. So I talked with Ben last night. Ben agreed also once the legalities, he had to lawyer up. Once the legalities of that situation are handled and kind of put to bed, that he will be on BTL to talk about that. I will say this. I do know some people at the Texas Parks and Wildlife. I have not talked to them about it. I talked with Ben about it. Same situation with Brad. A lot of stuff that he couldn't talk about legally. There's more to this story than meets the eye. It's a very catchy title. It's a very catchy headline. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes on this to where it may not be what it seems from a 300-word article or press release that actually went national, beyond the fishing realm. So that was an interesting one. I also confirmed that this will not impact Ben's position on the angler board of professionals with bass. This also had nothing to do with an actual tournament. And I mean, quite frankly, Milliken is the best at doing Milliken stuff, and he's probably going to capitalize from this one. It's all said and done. I know he already came out with his line of t-shirts, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. But in a week where it should have just been the focus on Bailey Gay winning his first NPFL event and Kyle Welcher winning another Angler of the Year after coming off of Angler of the Year on the Bassmaster Elite Series, mentioned he talked about how he always felt like he was chasing in the Angler of the Year race on the NPFL. He comes back, gets the Golden Shield, I believe, which is the NPFL Angler of the Year. So Kyle Welcher proving great consistency across multiple platforms moving into that. So that's, what else do we have there? We'll do another show on like I said, on the Pro Bass Adventures. We did 2 shows that were there. It was an absolutely crazy week. We are doing a BTL trip for sure next December. Those details will be out within the next weeks. I got probably 7 or 8 DMs and emails about how to get involved with that just based on what they saw. So when those are available, we'll link that. That'll probably be in January, and we'll have that trip completely solidified by March or April. It was absolutely insane. I remember, it's funny, I leave and there's all this stuff that doesn't have anything to do with actual on the water fishing. And this trip, the second year that I've done it, always just rejuvenates me for catching largemouth bass because they're just so pure. They're so aggressive. I started out last year, I think we did 93 or 94 over 4 pounds. And this year we had 87 over 5. I didn't even put any of the 4-pounders on the scale, but we caught way more 4s and 5s than that. We had one morning where we had a 38 Darren, my buddy Darren, who kind of taught me how to fish when I was 14. We had a 38-pound bag on top water. He was throwing a spooker, a Vixen, and I was throwing that injected plunker. And I've never had a bass straighten out a 2X short shank treble hook, and it happened on El Salto. But it's like the mist was rising up this lake. El Salto's kind of in the mountains. It was glass calm, and they have these old kind of gnarly dead trees, but you can fish right around them, and you would just do real slow, and that spook would just do, and it'd just be sitting completely still, and then it's just like someone dropped a bowling ball out of the sky. So we had one morning where we had 16 bass over 5 pounds on top water in about an hour and a half period, literally just going around this one flat next to wood. It was absolutely insane. I'd say, one of the big things that they've done there, that Josh James and the Pro Bass Adventures team has done, and paired up with the Bass Tank and Scott Palmer, to put LVS 34s or active target 2s and Ultrexes on every single boat that's down there. I'd say we use the electronics probably 2-3 hours a day. and we fish 9-10 hours a day with that lunch break. But it was really cool to be able to, if I wanted to put a big minnow on a group of fish or 2 or 3 fish that were at the base of the tree, I caught a 9-10 scoping it on an 8-inch minnow. But I also caught an 8-11 blind casting a 5/8 Kitech on a 3/4 ounce jig head. And half of our group didn't even look at a graph the entire time and caught multiple 8 or 9 pounders. So it's really cool that you can go down there and do what you want, have your guide run it. You can run the trolling motor if you want. He's doing some big things down there, kind of catering to the hardcore bass fishermen. So, all right, we're going to get back on the water. When we come back, we're going to take our first break. We're going to be joined by Ricky Harris. He's the new marketing manager at Omnia. He's been there a while. If you guys remember, I used to have Trevor Lowe on all the time. Then I think he had a new kid and he was like, man, I want to get back to guiding, spend more time on the water. I did a guide day episode with him out on Mille Lacs. He's guiding full time now. Ricky has stepped into that. And we have done this in the past 2 years with Omnia, where at the end of the year, we kind of talk a little bit about the trends, about the sales trends, the lures, the sections of the country where everything is getting sold and moved throughout the year. So Ricky will dive into that. And then he's also got a pretty cool backstory as I got to know him. We talk about college fishing a lot, and we look at the incoming anglers on both the BPT and the Bassmaster Elite Series over the last couple of years. But there's an entire different demographic. I would fall into this demographic as well, of individuals who now make a career, whether it's through 1 stop, 2 stops, 3 stops, in media, in business, with companies in the fishing industry, where that relationship started strict because of their involvement in college fishing. And college fishing gets a lot of negativity for field size and how it's done and all that, but also a lot of positivity for the anglers that it's building through the trails, through how they're fishing. But there's so many people that are in this industry now that started out with high school fishing, with college fishing, and now they're supporting their families in the industry, getting up every morning, doing what they love. So BTL on a Tuesday, December 17th. I think I covered everything. There was a bunch of stuff in here that I was trying to cover. Yeah, we'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu. But there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it. And also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly, gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Tuesday, December 17th. Holy cow. As I was kind of going through my list of things I wanted to talk about, I went back over through the comments during the break, and I saw some questions about, will this possibly affect Milliken's status to be able to fish on the Bassmaster Elite Series? Obviously, going back to the Josh Strassner incident where I think he was, inadvertently fishing without a license during a practice period up in South Dakota, ended up getting that license, which suspended his license in that state for like a year, which that state had reciprocating states in like 11 other states, to where then he couldn't get a license in those states for a year and therefore couldn't fish the Bassmaster Elite Series. I asked Ben about this. It's a concern. Like, it's definitely a concern. It's possible, but also there's a chance that this might not, as backed up as things are, might not get resolved for 4 to 6 months before it is either seen through or the charges are dropped. He is planning on fishing going ahead, fishing the Elite Series, the Classic, the whole 9 yards, all that in Texas. Does not think at this point that it is going to affect him. Definitely something that is on the radar, but you also have to remember, I mean, we're looking at that Strassner situation, which I never really dove really deep into that to see if there's anything more to it, but there have been, numerous honest mistakes of anglers who are fishing on fisheries that have, border states that don't reciprocate licenses and have gotten tickets for not having a license when they thought they'd had one, or having a conservation license when they needed a sport license, or just having an expired license in a state that they live in and not realizing it. We saw that happen in an NPFL event a couple years ago with the winner, where that had to go. He was DQ'd just from that event. It hasn't gone any further than that in those instances. So I don't think that is an issue, but is definitely on the radar from what I understand and from what Ben told me. So, all right, let's move on to the hottest things that are going on. And boy, if you listen to day 4 with Frank Scalish, Ricky, who works remote, he's not up in Minnesota, he's actually in Kentucky from Omnia. He's got a background that'll warm the heart of Frank Scalish. What's up, Ricky?
Hey, how's it going, Matt?
Thanks for jumping on a wild Tuesday BTL. I told you before when we had scheduled this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hey man, I'm going to go 20, 30 minutes in the first segment. There's about 9 things that happened over my time in Mexico. It seemed like I'd come off the water every day, and as soon as I got Wi-Fi, my phone would just explode. I'd be like, oh my God, what happened now? But how old is that silver thread poster behind you?
Hey, it's pretty old. I'd hate to try to estimate the date. Not as old as me, but it may be close. Huh.
I bet it is. I remember when I first came on with Jeffries in 2008, the man liked to hoard the silver thread, just bulk spools of the silver thread, especially in that gray line. So thanks for jumping on, BTL. Greatly appreciate it. And I'm ready to talk about some baits, some lures, some trends, and some tackle that kind of dominated the 2024 fishing season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be on here and looking forward to getting into it.
All right, kick things off. I know we've gotten to know each other. I worked primarily with Omnia with Trevor Lowe before, and I got to know Trevor Lowe when he was dang it, what was the mask that he wore? Now it's a movie. He wore the red Robert Downey Jr.
Iron Man.
He wore the Iron Man mask in the Bassmaster Classic. Got to know him through some media events. Really good dude. He kind of moved on to guide full-time from Omni up there. And then that's kind of where you kind of filled in for that originally. So talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up as the marketing manager at Omnia Fishing before we get into some fishing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of looking before that. So, prior to my time, here at Omnia, I was a sales representative for Pittman Creek Wholesale, which is a large tackle distributor here in the United States, probably the largest, I would say, freshwater tackle distributor. So being a sales rep for them for 3 years, I was fortunate enough to get to meet and network with a lot of great companies in my time there. And Omnia, being one that, I dealt with personally on that level before ever coming here. So we kind of built that relationship. And, originally there was a need, with my background fishing collegiately, and still, being in touch with a lot of the anglers that still fished and a lot of coaches and things like that. I came on with Omnia to kind of help develop a high school and collegiate program, there. And that's something that I've been working on at Omnia ever since. But the last, few months I've kind of taken over the marketing manager role. So, not just focusing on, kind of the high school and collegiate anglers, but, all of the partners that we have, here at Omnia. So that's kind of how I came to be in this role here.
How is the online tackle retailer business right now? I know that 3 years ago, I heard, my God, none of these companies will be in business because all everyone will ever buy now is a jerk bait. And then the last 2 years, it's been a minnow, and there'll be no rod sales, no reel sales, nothing. And this is going to become a very one-dimensional sport. You're going to see all these things just drop off by the wayside. Do you guys have like meetings at that? Has that been the case? Is that the issue? What are we seeing since you've come on board as far as the diversity of things that people are buying?
Yeah. I think that's one of the bigger misconceptions is that, there is still quite a bit of diversity in, the products that, are being purchased and, from looking at our fishing reports and things too. There are certain techniques that absolutely have became some of the more prevalent ones really all throughout the year. You look at jig heads and minnows, anything around that, forward facing sonar style of fishing. That's something that we've definitely seen an increase on, but, there's still guys out there, absolutely fishing with the same techniques, utilizing them the same ways as they have before. But I think that some things get quite a bit more attention just because of, tournament placements and things like that. You see a lot of guys at the top, the very highest level doing the same thing, but you start looking at it regionally too. And, there's still a lot of events being won, on a variety of different techniques, especially where I'm from here in, kind of south central Kentucky, pretty close to Lake Cumberland, Green River Lake, Dale Hollow, some of those places. You can look at some of those tournament results and things like that. And there's, a lot of techniques coming into play, just like you would expect, this time of year. So it's, I definitely think there's some things that get more attention than others for sure. But, we're seeing that there's still an array of different techniques going on out there across the country.
Does it seem to be very regionally based? Like if you're a guy in a region and that's the thing and all your buddies, you just assume that that's what's selling across the country, but you can actually be like, oh, there's a lot of people in this part of the country that are still buy crankbaits. This part of the country, we're sending a lot of jigs to this part of the country. And this part of the country is jig head minnows. Do you guys break that down and see that to where we just assume that in Oklahoma, oh, this is what the rest of the country is into and buying and purchasing. And we're just kind of closed-minded to the fact that there's still a bunch of people that fish with a bunch of stuff not in our neck of the woods.
Yeah. I think there's, an expectation that things are the same, across the country. And I think you really have to look at it too by the type of lakes, just like thinking here where I'm based out of in Kentucky, you go out to the western part of the state, like a Kentucky Lake and a Barkley, that's a totally different type of fishery than, a highland reservoir, like a Lake Cumberland or something like that. So, as far as the techniques and things across the country, you're seeing a lot of the same things. Really, the only variance is the particular brand, and I think that's where the regionality comes in more so than anything. There's guys in certain parts of the country, this is their brand. They love, obviously you take like a Georgia, Zoom is, a huge, so something like, a winged fluke is going to be, something you're going to see a lot more of as opposed to, you get in different parts of the country where, this brand of, whether it's minnow or the jig head, whatever, maybe, you know, queen tackles, you know, a good example of these. So many guys are throwing that jig head in the Carolinas and, you know, down that way, whereas, you know, other parts of the country, maybe the range roller from owner, things like that. So I think you see a lot of the same, you know, a lot of guys across the country are doing the same things. It's just, you know, kind of tweaking that product to fit their, you know, region, you know, whether it's upsizing or downsizing, depending on the forage, you know, changing up the color, things like that. You know, I feel like that's what we see more so of than, you know, as far as the products themselves go, you know, it's pretty widespread across the country anymore. You know, there's not, especially with some of your bigger brands, there's not a lot of, you know, when they have something that's hot, you know, a guy wins a tournament or something like that, it blows up. And, you know, we see, I think that's one of the most interesting things is seeing after, you know, tournament results and things like that, how sales on products will, you know, just rise tremendously. And even in regions you wouldn't think a lot of times, but I think that's probably got just as big of an impact on it as anything is the publicity and the marketing and things going towards the products themselves.
We've talked a little bit about this before on these shows that I've done with Omnia, but I always think it's interesting that, I mean, that is your job. You work with Omnia, you have the stats, you have a team of people that can see the stats. And for as much as you hear, oh, tournament fishing is in a bad spot, tournament fishing is dying, people are watching the YouTube, you can still see, regardless of whether it's a MLF, an Elite Series, a Toyota, an Open, someone wins on a bait, that bait is identifiable, he talks about that bait, sales spike on Omnia for that bait.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, you know, something too that, you know, in today's day, it's everything is so fast, you know, from the time that's released to, you know, getting product and things like that, all that's been expedited so much that it's, you know, really easy for, you know, not only the, you know, retailers to be able to get the products and, you know, make sure that they're able to meet the needs for, you know, the demand that's going to be coming. And then, you know, for the consumers too, it's, you know, no time after that's done, you know, they've watched the live stream then and they're already looking for the product, or it's a day or two later and they're already after it. So, yeah, you know, I think that's something that it's critical to, you know, keep an eye on and continue to stay on top of and manage. You know, that's what part of what makes it a, you know, a full-time job is these things change, you know, and evolve so quickly. And there's so many different outside influences that can affect, you know, the sales and things, and, you know, and it's all about, you know, being prepared for, you know, everything you can. Obviously nobody has a crystal ball, so you can't, you know, you can't make sure you've got everything everyone needs all the time, but, you know, that's, every day fighting to do, you know, the best we can to make sure that we stay on top of that stuff. And that's, you know, we've got a great team, you know, together to manage and track that. So, feel fortunate to be a part of that and be able to just to look at this stuff, you know, because from, you know, my perspective too, you know, being an angler myself, it's so fascinating to see how these trends and things, you know, change from time to time. And it's just, you know, just cool to me as an angler.
I just thought about this. I would imagine that Taku Itu and Kuya Fujita are a tackle forecaster's worst nightmare. Because, like, well, think about it. Like, what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, okay, and like you talked about, like with your job and your ability to talk, just to say this is what, and I know there's other people that do it there too, but you need to have in stock what they're catching on today that people don't have, because that's why they have to order it, right? So if it's a Cinco, they'll be like, oh yeah, I got Cincos. But if it's a dice rubber or some weird looking spiky rubber ball or some odd lipped, you know, reverse jerk bait with a spinner on it or something, like, if you don't have it, then you can't capitalize on the purchase when everyone comes to the website. I would think that would be incredibly hard, especially with the massive influx of odd baits now that we're seeing being utilized at the top level, and then on live as well too, to where people right then want to find it and purchase it. Yeah,
absolutely. And especially when you start looking at, you know, some of the stuff that's, you know, coming from Japan and things like that, that's, you know, in an entirely another scenario. So that's, you know, that's something that absolutely is difficult from a retail standpoint. But, you know, that's something that, you know, at Omnia, especially with a lot of the prevalent Japanese brands, you know, over here in the US, you know, that's something we carry a a good array of. There's just looking through some of the sales and things that we've done.
Can you
a lot of
share those? Can you tell us like what some of the top sellers were in 2024?
Yeah, just to give you kind of talking about some of the, more of the Japanese type stuff. Of course, Depths, is a brand with the Sakamata shad. Obviously, has been one that's been one of our best selling products altogether this year. But looking at some other brands like Ray Japan, Kitech is obviously one that's been in the US for a while. But like Megabass, Duo Realis, there's a lot of brands, like you were talking about from the, from Japan. That's a big part of it too. So I think that's, we've seen more of that. I feel like in the last 2 or 3 years, guys just like Taku, for instance, really kind of bringing that to the forefront. It really reminds me a lot of when I was kind of growing up, kind of around, the same time with you, Matt, but, with Takahiro Mori back in the day, I think about like the brand with Lucky Craft and, what all they were able to kind of introduce, on the scene from Japan. And, I feel like we're kind of starting to see another trend towards that again. You think about some of these brands that are household names today, like, Megabass or a Kitech. At one point in time, they were, no different than a Raid or a Depths, one that not a lot of guys had heard of and, really made a name for themselves. So those are, I think, brands to especially look to in the future for more, because it's always been, they've always been one of the biggest factors to, the innovation of the products and things that we use, over here in America. You look at the Megabass, Vision 110 jerkbait and the impact that it's had, not just from, product standpoint, but that style, how many brands have taken that style and kind of put their own spin to it and things like that. So, that's something that really fast. I've always had a fascination with, just over in Japan, it's a totally different, fishing's a different animal over there, and it's, they've got a lot of really cool stuff. So that's definitely a lot of stuff you can find over at Omnia.
Does it fall under your job category description or ever? So like you mentioned the Sakamata shad. So like, that's obviously one of the craziest baits that's taken off over the last couple years. And, you'll see some places it'd be like 3-pack Maximum, other places it'd be like, so, but, I talked to some local tackle shop owners, here in Oklahoma, that I'm friends with, and then talking, they're like, dude, like, we have all this stuff on ordered. We knew it was that, but like the supply chain there, like we don't know when we're going to get them. We don't know which ones we're going to get. Like, do you have anything to do with that? Like, how do you determine like, hey, we know this is something that we could sell, that we could make money on, but like, we have no idea when we're going to get it? Or how does that, do you have any idea on how that works? Or is that like a different department?
Yeah, it's not something personally that I deal with, every single day, but, especially with, my background at Pittman Creek, especially, that's something I've definitely been affected by, in a lot of the things that I do. And it's one of those things that, there's some things that are just inevitable, man. And there's nothing that you can, do about it. If, that it's coming. And like I said, there's 1,000 different reasons as to why, products can be delayed and things. And I know it's a frustration on the consumer's part for sure, but there's so many moving pieces and, the products and things that we use, it's just going to be inevitable. There's going to be times you're going to have someone order and you can't get them filled. And, you're going to see it, there's going to be out of stocks, across the board, there's nobody's going to have it. And that's just something, obviously, you're at the mercy of the manufacturer. So, obviously we're ordering that kind of stuff and, we want to get it as soon as we possibly can. But, sometimes it just, doesn't line up. And for a lot of these brands too, you think about, just managing the product assortment that you have. And then all of a sudden over the course of 4 days, somebody wins a Bassmaster Elite Series or a Classic or something. And then all of a sudden you've got 40 missed calls and you've got an inbox just crammed full of purchase orders from every retailer. And, it's something that's so tough, and it's incredibly difficult to, obviously, like I said, they can't, predict what that bait's going to be. So they're kind of in the same boat that we are. They've got to, they have a set amount of inventory on hand right at the moment, and then they have to, produce more or, get some more if they have, some in a, maybe a distribution center or something like that. So there's a lot of hurdles to jump over to get, get guys the products that they want when they want them. It's really amazing if you purchase a product after watching, an event, get it 2 or 3 days later, just the amount of time and effort that goes into getting that all facilitated is amazing.
Talk a little bit also. So there's a lot of options out there for online retailing now too, which it's been amazing since, I'm sure since you got into the industry too, it went from like 1 to 2 to 5 to, now every local store has a website. You can purchase it online too. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges or what you've done to tackle kind of purchasing loyalty. Like I said when I first got with Omnia, I'm like, yeah, like anything that I buy, I order primarily from Omnia, but like I'm still going to go to Lucky Lure Tackle in OKC. Mm-hmm. And if Michael has something in stock there, I'll drop a couple $100 there just because that's a local one-off. But when it comes to, you don't really have any affiliation with it, what are some of the things that Omni has done to try to generate kind of some purchasing loyalty and brand loyalty amongst their consumers? Yeah,
absolutely. There's, I could talk for an hour about a lot of the different things, but I think just really looking at Omni as a whole, our pro membership obviously is something that's huge if you're an angler really of any level. By having that pro membership, not only do you get 10% cash back on your purchases, form of credit back onto your account, and you get free shipping with no minimums all year. So just think about that, Matt. Having the ability to order 2 or 3 packs of worms, or a few packs of hooks, or man, I'm out of drop shot weights, stuff like that. You get free shipping all year with no minimums. So you can get whatever it is you need. You don't have to worry about shipping, and you're getting that 10% cash back too. So, and obviously with our pro membership too, there's the commerce side of it, and then the technology side of it. We've got some, really, really cool stuff on the map layer technology side. So we actually have Navionics cartography built into our app. We're the only other app that has, access to that technology. And, in addition to that, we have, real-time water temperature. Being able to look at the water temperature on different points of the lake throughout, looking at it each day too. This is not just, this is outdated information. This stuff's being updated every day, multiple times a day, actually. And it's, it's just so imperative. You think about like back in our, time fishing in college, going to those new bodies of water that you've never been to before, and being able to know, okay, here's the coldest areas, here's the warmest areas. I can already cut off 50% of that lake before you ever even get to the parking lot. And that's, that's so huge for a tournament angler, especially. You've got a limited amount of practice time anyway, and you're already able to put yourself ahead of the curve by having access to that information. We have, over a dozen different additional layers, from weather, radar, and all that's included in our pro membership. So, I think that's one of the biggest things as far as, loyalty to our consumer base. And Omnia's mission really has always been to, give the best recommendations and information on products that we can. And we've, even evolved from that to, there's so much information, and from the fishing reports to all of the video content that we have that's shoppable. You're able to watch videos on our site and click straight from that video to the product. I've spent hours of my life I'll never be able to get back just watching videos and trying to figure out what bait is that exactly. Is that the 5-inch or the 6-inch, or is that white or white pearl or bone? And having that ability to it, just we want to give anglers the tools to be able to learn more and just become better consumers and better anglers, from whether you're a novice angler that's just starting out and trying to get information. There's from fishing reports and things like that. It can be overwhelming to a lot of anglers, but we have that ability to really, you can kind of personalize your account to get the information that you need. You can favorite lakes to get information. You can favorite some of your favorite ambassadors who file reports and things like that. You can follow brands and get notified whenever we're having deals and promotions and things like that. So, we really try to service the consumers in every way. We feel like it's not enough just to give, the products that these guys want at the prices that are competitive. We want to be so much more. So I think that's, the aspect of it too. We have, we have a tremendous amount of loyalty in our consumer base. And it's, we're very fortunate to be able to service such a great, cohort of people, and it's continuing to grow too. And that's what is so exciting to me, being from Kentucky. Obviously, Omnia has been, a big presence in the upper Midwest for years now, but just, in my travels and things, I go down to Florida, or I'll be in Texas, somewhere like that, and I'll see somebody with an Omnia hat on, or, somebody will come up to me and say, hey, I seen you with Matt Pangrack on Bass Talk Live talking about Omnia, and just, it's, we, the people that shop with us, really love Omnia, and we, really appreciate that. And we'll continue doing everything we can to provide the most up-to-date information about anything fishing.
While you've been talking, I kind of pulled up my account and went to Grand Lake, pulled up a report from Rich Lingren, Hella Bass, from when he was here back in November. Links it directly to it. You can do the water temp, you can do the water clarity, you can show, which direction the wind is in, and then it actually links you to the exact baits. So if I was going to go, crappie fishing there's crappie fishing reports, all sorts of stuff. So that was one of the cool things when I got when Omni approached me. It's more interesting to me. It's more interactive than just going to the website and doing it. You can actually, they still have that feature where you can actually chat with someone on there. Yeah. So if you have a question or anything, hey, this is the type of stuff that I'm looking for, or hey, I want to get into the jig head minnows, what would you recommend for the jig head and size for this minnow, that type of thing. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Very cool stuff.
We had access to that chat, and I, coming on the show here, like I said, my email's Ricky@Omnia Fishing. If there's anyone that listens to the show has any questions or anything, like I said, feel free to reach out and email me. Like I said, we're here to help, and that's what I want to do.
And I do know there's a lot of we did an Omnia push for the pro membership with BTL listeners. I haven't had a single listener that wasn't happy with their membership, with their fee. I try not to push the codes and all that stuff on BTL. If you know me, I don't even remember the codes. The code is in the link in the description for the show. I think it's what is it? I did forget it. BTL Pro.
BTL Pro. Yeah.
Capital BTL Pro. If you guys want to try it and talk about what that includes, then if you go on BTL Pro, because there's a $50 gift card that goes along with that through the end of the year.
Yeah. So from now until the end of the year, everyone that wants to has the ability to the purchase Pro. So Pro's $49.99 for the year. And if you purchase it using the BTL Pro code, once you've made that purchase, you'll automatically get a $50 gift card there in your dashboard, and it'll be there for you, ready to go. So it's.
But does that just go through the end of the year?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah.
So they'd have to renew again the next in January, or does that work for a full year?
Yeah, no. So that is for the full year subscription. That offer for the $50 gift card.
Oh, so available. It's free. So Omnia Pro is free. Basically,
essentially, yeah.
You get a $50 gift card to use at Omnia Fishing, and then you get all of the Pro with all of the discounts and all of the perks once you have your account that you just described.
Absolutely, yep.
There you go. And it helps me out. That's a win-win, and it helps you guys out.
It's a triple win.
We've been working on.
Helps me, helps them.
We've been talking about some cool stuff that hopefully we'll get into in the 25 season that'll benefit everyone involved, including the anglers and the listeners. So, is anyone buying crankbaits anymore, Ricky? Is there a big deal for crankbaits and stuff, and spinner baits, or has that definitely slowed down?
Yeah, I think that those two in particular. They're ones that are starting to pick back up that, I've seen here lately, especially with, it being December here, but you're looking at Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, those kind of places. It's it's getting that time of year where things are starting to things have cooled down quite a bit, and there are guys starting to catch some again on like a spinnerbait, and around here like crankbaits, a Spro rock crawler is one that's a huge one here, or a Little John, things like that. They're starting to pick back up now, but I would definitely say overall this year has probably been slower for crankbaits, spinnerbaits. I don't want to say power fishing in particular, because I feel like jerk baits are kind of their own unique, kind of animal in that sense, just because of their, utilization with forward facing sonar. I feel like if anything, jerk baits have, just increased in, the demand for those. But with crankbaits and spinnerbaits, especially, I think those are two that you're seeing, not seeing as many sales on as we have in the past.
And then what about like the old standard? Like I noticed like this week through today, actually 25% off of all Senkos, Yamamoto Senkos. Yeah. And you guys typically do like a random, it seems random to me, I'm sure it's not random, like sale at % off of something every week. So you go on there, you really have no idea what it's going to be. Like this week it's Senkos. So, $5.47 for the pack. But are the standards like the Senkos, the worm hook, like all that stuff, have those stayed pretty steady too, from just the people who aren't diehard tournament fishermen who have gone to their ponds or lakes for the last 20 years and thrown the same watermelon red Senko, are still buying the watermelon red Senkos?
Yeah, the Senko in particular is one that's absolutely stayed the same. Obviously with wacky rigs, and I feel like just with anglers of all skill levels too in general, is that Senko is just such a, if you're a professional, you know how valuable of a tool it can be to catch numbers of fish, and it's something that's very simple, easy to use for novice anglers as well. So we've really seen that stay consistent with the Senko stick bait style stuff in general. But I would say that probably more of your traditional other styles of worms, that you're typically dragging, things like that, probably haven't been as big before. I feel like the creature baits, especially, and it's something we've kind of seen slowly over the last few years, but there's a lot of creatures that really kind of take the place for the big worms and things like that for a lot of guys. But I think that's something too that we could dive into a lot deeper. But just looking at things in kind of the idea of finesse in general, I think that's been another big theme throughout all of this, is just that kind of downsizing. Even looking at techniques like a Carolina rig, or just like a Texas rig worm, for instance, on the like the Tennessee River, for instance, you're fishing ledges or stuff like that. There's we've seen so much of the smaller stuff this year as opposed to the larger, really looking throughout any products, especially in the soft plastics. But there's really just been this big push this year for finesse. So I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about it is some of the things have definitely stayed the same for sure, but there have been some things that seems like they are trending different ways.
All right. And that code for the Pro is in the YouTube description. You can just click on it. All capitals there, capital BTL Pro.
Yep.
Before I let you go, I do want to mention, I mentioned before I brought in, when I was getting to know you over the phone, we had a long talk about getting into the industry. You're in the industry because of Collegiate fishing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. So I attended Bethel University.
Juggernaut, some would say. Some would call
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
The gold standard of collegiate fishing.
We would definitely say that, but we may be a little biased.
I'm not biased. I went to OU, and I mean, do you look at Bethel? It's, I mean, as far as what it's pumped out, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and man, so when I started in 2013, it was kind of the perfect storm for, at least for us at Bethel, because at that time, that was the only school. Maybe there might have been one other that year, the next year, that introduced it, but that was the only school in the country that was offering a scholarship of any type. So it just, they're there for, 5 or 6 years. It just, it really attracted a lot of, really good anglers. I think about the class that I came in with. I was the only one from the state of Kentucky. We had a couple guys from Wisconsin. We had a guy from Missouri. But just within those 2 or 3 years, I think about we had guys from Washington State, Florida, California, New York. At one point in time there was just so many of us guys, and I think that's one of the things that helped every single one of us evolve as anglers. And for some of the listeners that may not know, some of my teammates were guys like Cole Floyd, John Garrett, KJ Queen, Cody Huff. So we had a lot of really, really good anglers. I know it's funny, the 2 tournaments that I had a 2nd place finish and a 5th place finish one time that my own teammates beat me both times.
And all the places ahead of you.
Yeah. So it was, I felt like going into a lot of tournaments, it was, if I could just beat my own teammates, then I had a good shot to win.
And it is, you put that kind of that camaraderie to where you're focused on fishing, where that's a time of your life where you're easily distracted, so to speak, by a number of outside influences, perhaps. And then you put it in with education, with a marketing, with a business degree, with a PR, with finance, with anything that you want to do. And then you go to the tournaments where you're meeting representatives from these companies that are giving the collegiate anglers, products and % off, obviously, because when they graduate, they want them to have disposable income and then buy their boats and motors and products and electronics and things. But you end up meeting all these connections, and it's just so natural. And like I said, the guys you just mentioned are the ones who get the headlines. But you look, I'm solely my collegiate bass fishing is solely responsible for what I've done full time since 2008, 15 years. And I think it's cool. I meet so many other people, Ricky, that are like at your position too, that are like, oh yeah, I fish for X school. And then I met this through this, and I knew I wanted to be in the industry, or I wanted to fish. And then like you got your job with Pittman Creek. Mm-hmm. Was that like directly out of college then? So like, was that your first gig out of college?
So actually, for the first 10, 11 months I was out, I actually worked at Cabela's. So worked just on the floor in the fishing department. And it was super interesting because it was during the time that Cabela's was acquired by Bass Pro Shops. So okay. I really got to see a lot of things happen, in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. But I was fortunate to, I think that so many kids, come into collegiate fishing, especially with the mindset of, oh, I want to be a professional angler. That's really that's what, this path is for. And, I can attest to it. And, a good friend of mine, Brad Abelman, is actually, he's the national sales manager over at Duckett Fishing. He and I were teammates there together at Bethel, but that's just as, big a part of, the college angling side of things. Obviously there's opportunity. One of those guys gets to fish the Classic every year, and, that can be, a life-changing opportunity. And like I said, I've got, there's 6 different guys that I went to school with that all fish, professionally at, right at this moment. But there's also several of us that work, kind of behind the scenes in the industry too. And that's, I feel so fortunate to kind of, wander down this path, because like, it wasn't, definitely anything, I had this plan from, the time I was a kid, because that absolutely wasn't the case. But it's just, networking, and just like you were talking about these tournaments, that you go to, there's so many opportunities as a collegiate angler to make these connections and, get in front of these guys. And sometimes it's just as simple as making an introduction, saying, hey, I'm, so-and-so with, this team, and, I'd love to just connect with you and, see if there's any potential roles that, you have coming up, especially if you're, junior, senior, kind of the collegiate side of things, reach out to some of these companies and see what, I think that was the biggest thing for me is I truly didn't realize how many different, career paths and jobs there is in this industry, man. I mean,
Yeah, it's wild.
Doing, the things that I love to do. I feel like I don't have the pressure to have to go out there and catch them every time. I can, I just, it's so cool to be able to, working behind the scenes in this industry, and just, it is a small, kind of tight knit, community, but it's definitely something that, if you're willing to, put in the work and, just do the outreach and make the connections, there's, you wouldn't believe the opportunities that are available in this industry.
And there is no substitute for experience, but one of the cool things is the learning curve is so greatly reduced. Like if you're looking to bring someone in who understands the tournament scene and the fishing and their consumers as well, who are buying tackle and understand what the struggles are, like, and then they come out of college, like that cuts the learning curve down for so many people who are in a hiring position already to just bring someone in. And then the one thing that you can't put a price tag on is passion. And if you have the opportunity, even if it's not a direct passion, even if you want to be on the Elite Series, boat flipping 6-pounders, cooking with gas and asking, telling people that's what you're talking about, it's still your passion to be in that industry, to talk fishing, to work with fishing, even if a product that's related to fishing. You can't put a price tag on employees on working with people who have passion in the industry that they're in. And I think that's one of the great things that Collegiate Fishing has done. And I know I'll leave some people out, but when I got into it, it was kind of just exploding. That was Wade Middleton with the Collegiate Bass Fishing Series, Steve Bowman with College Bass. I don't think people realize how many hundreds of lives that Collegiate Fishing has changed behind the scenes. And if you start asking like, oh, what's your story? I'm shocked at how many people it started with collegiate and now high school fishing and junior fishing. But really that's that last kind of critical step to putting all the pieces together and then going out and making money to where you don't have to eat top ramen and beanie weenies and, put 6 gallons of gas in the boat to get to your spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the coolest things about it too, Matt, is that, by guys like us, knowing that, and, just making younger anglers more aware of the different opportunities and things like that. That's one of the things that we have to do to help grow and evolve this sport. You know what I mean? Is, when we have, these young people that are passionate about fishing, then, as they're continuing their education, we want them to have those opportunities because, the smarter our, next generation of anglers is, it's just gonna be better, all throughout. We want the brightest minds, that we can find, in this industry that they're passionate about this sport. And, I think there's guys out there that just don't realize that there's, a legitimate, career path, through this. And, I think that's one of the things, at least in, my time at Omnia, is I've always really tried to make sure that I, with collegiate high school guys, especially, I want to help support, them any way I can, even if it's not just something from, like a discount on products or, access to, our pro technology, things like that. But if they just, have questions, like, hey, what's out there, what's available, what is your job? What do you do? Like, I love having those conversations with those guys. Cause, I was in their very same shoes, just a decade or so ago, looking for the same answers. And it's hard a lot of times to find, the right people to ask and things like that. So, it's always something I've been really passionate about. To, like I said, college fishing is, give me this opportunity, and I want to help other guys, in the same boat, give them the same opportunities.
We didn't even talk about the guys who are now just skipping college, going straight to the show.
Yeah.
It's just like the Trey McKinneys of the world. Anything else you want to get in here, Ricky, before I let you go?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else yet. I just, man, I really appreciate you having me on. And like I said,
I appreciate it, man. Ricky Harris, marketing manager at Omnia Fishing. Thanks, dude.
Thanks, Matt.
See ya. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, put a bow on it. It's BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
Hey guys, Brian Schmidt here with Spro. I'm going to talk to you about the confidence I have in the equipment I use. You know, I have a charter boat business back home in Maryland. We fish for saltwater fish, and I also fish the Bassmasters Elite Series. So I keep my lights on by fishing. I have to have a lot of confidence in the equipment I use. Spro has me covered from head to toe, saltwater, freshwater, everything in between. A lot of high-end quality product. Spro has you covered.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, the truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the Beatdown double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the Beatdown.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
All right, wrapping things up here on a Tuesday. Big show to round out the year tomorrow. We will do a live show with Frank on Thursday, and then there's a recorded show next Monday on the 23rd. That'll be the last show of the year, but the last live show of the year will be tomorrow. It's the 18th, Wednesday. Justin Hamner in studio. Bassmaster Classic champion is in Oklahoma, taking care of some business, getting his boat rigged with the bass tank. He will be live in studio tomorrow with things to give away. So really looking forward to that. Frank will put a bow on it for the 2024 season on Thursday, and then recorded show Mark Menendez on the 23rd before we take a week off, do a little BTL revamp, and we return in January. First show in January, already booked, the one and only. It's been a little over a year since he's been on. The last time he was on the show was just to announce his retirement, but haven't had him one-on-one. KVD kicking things off in 2025 on that first Monday in January. So big shout out to Ricky from Omnia. Greatly appreciate it. And then, like I said, as far as everything else is concerned, as news comes out and guys can talk about it, one of the cool things that I like is they have been very open with saying, yeah, we will let you know when we can talk. And when we do, we would love to come on BTL and lay it out in a non-biased actual way. I mean, I'm sure if you're giving your own perspective, it's going to be pretty biased, but you guys can determine that as the listeners. So this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Same place, same time tomorrow. Justin Hamner live in studio. See ya.